Okay, so I'm going to record a few short videos from the reading information processing theory. These videos will explain to you different topics which are explained in this chapter. So let's begin with the first one. So information processing theory chapter begins with giving you some assumptions uh, of this information, this learning theory. Um, and as we learned in other theories related to cognitivist developmental idea, that we associate learning with others. So when we learn something, that means we are creating file, we are constructing a schema, and as we learn more information, we keep on adding what we call assimilation, accommodation, generalization, and then associations as well. So that is the idea which is still valid in information processing theory. So because in cognitivism, um, the purpose of learning or the focus of learning is to take all the information to a long-term memory or to support students or pupils or learners to take information to the long-term memory. And we also looked at, we will look at memory model soon. And also it is analogous, so it is, you can compare it with what we call computer processing. So we have, I mean, in terms, metaphorically, for example, you have input and you have output as well, right? And then there is processor in computers. So that's what they say. Uh, so there is input, something around us, and that input is received by us through our senses, and that information is processed, right, in our brain, in our cognition, and then according to the nature of the content, either we assimilate information or accommodate information, then we store, similar to storing information in a computer, either on a hard disk or maybe on cloud computing. So this is similar to what computer does. So they have given is this example here. This is the memory model, two-store memory model, as you can see. We receive information, sensory memory, which is input around us, and we receive information when we hear something, when we watch something, when we listen to something, we watch a video, we listen to a teacher, we listen to news, we read a news report, we need a magazine report, or maybe a research journal. So all those are different forms of inputs, right, that we register in our what we call short-term memory. And this registration of this information in short-term memory is because of attention. If we look at attention and how we the information that we pay attention to and why soon. So as we store this information in a short-term memory, now it is going to disappear if we do not rehearse, or if we do not recall, if we do not repeat, or if we do not use this information, right? So another word is, I mean, there are many examples that I've given in earlier classes. For example, times table in mathematics. So we still know 2 times 2 is 4, or 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 9 is 81, but what is 81 times 81? So though we do not know, we cannot recall quickly as we did with 3 times 3, 9, and 9 times 9, 81, because we haven't been doing it. We haven't been using 81 times 81, this information. And so that is, though we know the process, I can multiply 81 multiplied by 81, and I can find the answer. But the information that 81 multiplied by 81 is equal to so and so is, I cannot recall it immediately because it is not stored in my memory, but the process is stored, that how I can find the answer, right? So since I haven't been rehearsing it, I have been using this information 80 times 81 is this. So that's why it's not stored in my memory. And I cannot recall it, retrieve it. But I know the process, but I can retrieve it through the cues are there. right? I need to do this. I need to multiply 81 by multiply 81. Then I will be looking at how we multiply two digit number with two-digit number. So then, as you revise, you recall, you repeat information, it goes into your what we call long-term memory. This goes into long-term memory, and this is where it is stored for a longer period of time. And if you keep using it, then of course, as long as you're using it, it is going to stay in your memory. And sometimes there is an aspect of memory loss, so there is an aspect of memory decay. Memory loss and memory decay is could be because of some medical conditions such as dementia, or maybe Alzheimer, where people lose memory, and that has to do something with biological things. So that is there are some biological changes happening in your brain. So some parts of your brain might be becoming inactive, or so that's why you cannot recall the information that was stored there are lost, right? But it could be possible that you might be able to recall it if you are given cues, or if that part of the brain could be activated. So that is the dual two-store memory model. It's there in, if you look at its classroom application, teachers use it. So when they are giving you information through senses, they will try to use all kinds of inputs. They will be talk, speech, they will be visual, right? So there will be something to read, right? Where the visual could be in the form of image, the process, like such as photosynthesis process, digestion process, or it could be in the form of text, right? And then this information is revised by teacher. A teacher asks question, and you respond to those questions. Teacher might ask you to fill in multiple choice question, fill in the blanks, true, false. All these are different forms of recalling, revising, rehearsing information. The purpose is to take it into your long-term memory. The purpose is to take it into your long-term memory, so that in future you are able to retrieve it faster. So as you are doing this, the information is your schema that are stored in your that are created in your brain. They are either expanded because more information is going there. The files, the schema is reorganized because the new information has to be stored in certain fashion so that you can recall information in a certain order. If it is not the case, then you might be recalling information, but the information is not recalled in the right or the correct order. So you will be answering question, but you will not be giving the information in the right order, right? So that is when the schema is not organized properly and the information is not stored properly in our brain. So that is two-store model memory. Now, as you can see, this is another image to show you input sensory registers here in a brain, or constructs, memory constructs, you can call it. You can call it schema, you can call it files in terms of computer, and it is there in your working memory, right? You're working on a Word file, so that is similar to working memory. And once you've closed it, right? Once you've closed it, you have stopped working on it. How will you bring information from that file? So that is, if it has gone into your long-term memory, it could be active memory or it could be inactive memory. So you look at active memory and inactive memory in a short while, right? So that is again repetition of what I said earlier, right? So a few terms. There is LTM, long-term memory; STM, short-term memory; WM, working memory. So these are some of the terms which are used here. So alternative to two-store model is what we call levels of processing. Now, according to this, this idea says that how deep or how much information you are going to learn or listen to or read, and you are able to process at a certain stage. So that level of or depth of processing is also important, is also matter when we are looking at information processing ability. It's important because um, what you can, how much information you can learn and how much information you can process is all dependent on your cognitive development stage, whether it is um, pre-operation stage, whether it is concrete operation stage, whether it is common operation stage. So each stage has a certain limit, right? And also it is affected by what we call attention span. We'll come into on that in a short while. So we look at different ways, such as levels of depth at which is processed. For example, if you're looking at photosynthesis, so you might be looking at, okay, this happens, this happens, this happens, that's it. But then you're going to look at, okay, let's see, there's some conditions have changed outside in the environment. So how is it going to affect the process of photosynthesis? How is it going to affect the plants? What will happen to the leaves and its colors? What will happen to the shape of the leaves, the size of the leaves, right? What is going to happen to maybe the stem, the roots? How is it going to be affecting the whole plant? So that is what we call deeper processing. So you are going into, if you remember the what we call domains of the cognitive domain given by Bloom's or what we call Bloom taxonomy. So you have lower thinking order and we have higher thinking order, right? So lower order is memory, such as knowledge, recalling, comprehension. Higher order is analysis, evaluation, creativity, creating something. So that is what they call deeper levels of processing. So they say there is physical, which is surface. Okay, this is this, that is what is this, what is that, where it is, how it is. That is all deeper level. Then we have acoustic, which is sound. So we associate different sounds with different kinds of knowledge. And then we have semantics. Then we start attaching meaning to the words and the sounds, right? For example, again, let me go back to the photosynthesis example. So what is photosynthesis? The process of photosynthesis, that is surface learning. And then you go into semantic learning, then you're going to look at a deeper level. What is the connection between photosynthesis and the plant? The size of the leaf, the color of the leaf, the size of the tree, the type of the tree, how it is affected by the sunlight, whether it is a very warm country or whether it's a very cold country, whether it is what we call what is that other weather pattern? Okay, when it comes, I will tell you. So that is what we call deeper or depth levels of processing or depth of processing, then physical processing being the most superficial and semantic processing being the deepest one. So understanding is better when material is processed at deeper level. That's what I say, when you can connect, when you can see information and connect it with a lot of other things are connected to a certain idea. So asking students to paraphrase ideas while they read essays, it significantly enhances recall compared to the activities that did not draw on previous knowledge. So that is when they are saying, so when we are going into semantic, so when they're going to talk about something new, so they have to attach it or they need to connect it to the previous knowledge, right? So if they're going to look at the effects of global warming on what we call, not global, but the global warming is old one, let's say the effects of in sea pollution, or maybe let's say in present days, effects of what we call COVID-19 on human behaviors, right? So you're going to bring into looking at psychology, human behavior, and then what is happening. There are lockdowns, that people are staying indoors. There is online teaching. In some cases, both parents and everyone is staying together in the house for a very long hours, for a longer period of time. So how it is having an impact on them. So you might be looking at this, and then if you are able to attach it with psychology, if you are able to attach it with emotional development, then of course you are able to look at, then you will know that that you are actually processing this information at a deeper level. And that's what it says, in higher thinking, or it develops higher thinking skills, or higher thinking level. The other one is activation level. So as we said that memory is stored in our brain in the form of cells, in the form of structures or memory constructs, so files. Now each file, if you remember, let me come back to computer analogy. Now when we need to open a file, so if we need to read something which is stored on this laptop, I need to open that file. When I'm opening that file, I'm actually activating a certain part of the computer where this particular information is stored. For me, that's a file, but for computer, that is a certain part in computer's hardware where this information is stored. And when I click on that file, that part of the hardware becomes active. So I'm activating that part of the hardware or the hard disk, or the memory which is there on hard disk. So if it is cloud computing, then of course they are also using the same similar structure. So activation. So memory is stored there, but important thing is how we can activate that part of the brain that can help us to recall information, right? Or so they say that information that we receive, or the knowledge that we construct for ourselves, either it is active or it is inactive state. The active state is where you are able to recall faster, we're able to use it, right? So, and inactive is, and you struggle to recall, you struggle to answer a question asked by a teacher, you struggle to solve a question given by a teacher in science, in physics or maths or chemistry questions, right? So there are no separate memory structures, but rather one memory with different activation states. So they're saying there is one memory, right? And that is either active memory or whether it is inactive memory. So when active, the information could be accessed faster, quicker, and when it is inactive, we struggle to answer the question because we cannot connect information together. We cannot piece them together. So the active state is maintained as long as information is attended to. Attended to mean when you are recalling information, when you are using information, and you are having information, right? In, for example, times table, you still remember times table because you have been using it in mathematics, you have been using it in your everyday life, shopping, doing some other work, right? You have rehearsed it so many times in your life from class 3, 4, 2 to 11, 12 till university that you still know those times table, right? But you have forgotten, as I said in one of the early examples in classes, that we have forgotten matrices. We have forgotten all those trigonometric part of the math. If math is not your major or minor, then of course this is because we did not use it. We did not attend it. We did not attend to that information. So without attention, the activation level will decay. Decay means it will be weakened, right? So when that activation level weakened, and this has happened with in terms of matrices knowledge, in terms of trigonometry knowledge with many of us, but in terms of arithmetic, it is still there, right? In some parts of algebra it is there, but in some parts of algebra it has decayed, right? So the information can only be activated when the memory structure is, we have to reactivate it. So we can only reactivate it if we are going to pay attention, if we are going to revise that, if we are going to again open the book and learn how to solve or how to add matrices, how to multiply, how to divide, blah, blah. So all that is there. So so according to this, the memory is either active state or inactive state. So if the memory is in inactive state, we can bring it back to active state if we attend to that memory, if we again learn that particular content or revise that content. And that's what teachers do in schools. Every day, they might be revising the old content in the class. Remember what we studied this in so and so chapter. So they are actually trying to reactivate some part of your brain or some part of the memory which might have become inactive, right? So that is what teachers do, and there. And that's what you also do when you are preparing for your annual exam. Remember your metric and class 9, 10, 11, 12 exam. So you studied something in your first month, and then exams are going to be in next year, March. You started in 2015 March, exam is 2016 March or April. So what you studied in March, April, May, June is going to be inactive. So so you will be reactivating that part of your brain where this information was stored, actually, that memory, by again revisiting the content. Teachers do it, students do it on their own. The next is attention. Now, it's important that attention means everyone says attention. Students pay attention to what I am. Students be attentive. So these are the things that teachers say in classes. And it is believed, and they say that students who perform well in exams, they perform well because they pay attention to what is done in classroom. So attention is directly proportional to what they call learning or better performance in school, in class, or in exams. So, or in other words, in attention is meaningfulness of processing. So when you're paying attention, the processing which is happening in your brain or in your cognition is actually meaningful because you are actively engaged in making sense of the information that is received by your senses, and you are actively processing that information, and your cognition is assimilating, accommodating into either already existing schema file, or maybe by expanding them, reordering the information, or maybe creating new ones. But attention is limited, and that's what cognitive developmental theory has told us. I'm sure you must be familiar with the word attention span. So that's why they say it is limited, because each one has a limited attention span. Some of us might be able to focus for maybe 10 minutes, or maybe might be able to focus for 20 minutes. Or 30 minutes on an activity or on a task. So that is my attention span. And after that, whatever I'm going to read or listen to or learn, it's not going to go into my brain. My brain will be unable to process that information. So that is, so that's what it is referring to. It is in limited supply. It's a limited human resource, and it is expended to accomplish one's goal and to mobilize and maintain cognitive process. So it's also important. And so attention and attention span, that's what it refers to. So attention span or attention is so bottleneck. I'm sure you will be familiar with the word bottleneck. So bottleneck means a problem which cause delay in something. So this is usually used in factory. This is industrial terms. So in bottlenecks, we might have a bottleneck in some stage of in the manufacturing, what we call stage, and because of that bottleneck, suddenly the work stops. And unless and until we remove that bottleneck, the process will not start, and they will be delayed in whatever the process was supposed to achieve. So if we are not paying it, if you're not attentive to what is being taught, or you're not attentive to what is being said or taught through this video lecture, then that is, so you need to, it could be because you have reached your maximum attention span level. So that means you need to stop doing whatever you are doing, that is listening to this video, and engage yourself in a different activity. Maybe go out and exercise, maybe listen to some music, maybe exercise, or even in your room or wherever you are in your house, you may do drawing, get into some other activity, watch TV, play games, some board game with your siblings or someone at home. So you need to, so then this bottleneck will be removed. And then again, you will come back to this. Your information processing system will be again reinitiated, right? So this limitation will be removed. So again, you can start from, again, you can start or restart your learning process. So that is what it says, attention span. There is dichotic listening exercises and there is filter theory in attention. So that is DIE. Everyone is familiar with the DIE, and chotic DIE mean two. So I'm sure you might have participated in an activity where someone said something in your right ear, and then something at the same time was said in your left ear. So you listen to two things, right? You listen to two things at the same time, something in your right ear, something in your left ear. Now they're saying you have listened to both the information, but you may not be able to recall both the information. And that is because some part of the message either you received in your right ear, or whether the message might have been received in your left ear, remain unattended to. You did not pay attention to. And the reason you did not pay attention to was what was said, the vocabulary that was used, that was unfamiliar, unpleasant, or the words were not repeated in both the cases. The messages were very different. So you were only able to connect to something that you were able to connect with your earlier experiences. So that's what they are saying. So we are paying. So attention is also something we pay. We actually pay attention to something that we can connect ourselves with. If we are unable to connect ourselves with what we are listening or doing or working on with the previous knowledge or the previous experiences or the schema, so we are going to pay attention. If it is something new and it is if it's something new and this is the only thing that I'm listening in both the ears, then of course then I'm going to pay attention to it, because there is only one thing. There are not two things, right? The other one is filter theory or the bottleneck theory. So it says that so we have what we call information is stored briefly in a system, and it can only go into a long-term memory, or it can only go into active state memory if a certain filter is removed. So we have a filter actually in our brain, and through that filter, we filter information that become part of our memory, right? The information which pass through the filter, they go beyond the sensory system, which is the information that you received through your senses, and then you have taken into short-term memory, and then of course by rehearsing, repeating, it will become part of your long-term memory. So the filter is there. The bottleneck theory says that your sensory system stops or filters information, and that's, you must have noticed a lot of time when you're asked, okay, look at the picture and find out similarities and differences. So when you're finding similarities and differences, it's easier to find similarities because you say, okay, this color is there in this picture, that this color is also in this picture. This particular shape is there in this part of the picture, this particular shape is there in the same place. So similarities are there. But at the same time, if it is a very complex picture, then this is where your senses struggle, because your senses, because we are human and it's limited, so we actually block lots of information. And that's what when they say observe something. So when you're observing something which is using your senses, you are actually referring what we call, you are using this theory, this idea that some of the information will be blocked out, and whatever information is processed through this filter of senses, they will become part of your short-term memory and then long-term memory. Then feature integration of attention is that it distributes attention across many inputs. So it could be low-level processing. So there could be many kinds of inputs. So you might be hearing from your listening, viewing, touching, smelling. So all these are different forms of inputs, and each of which it receives low-level processing. So rather than we block out or leave the messages out, we do not pay attention to. It makes some of the features that we are observing or that we are seeing or that we are hearing or smelling. So it pay attention to some of the salient features, some of which comes out or shines out from what we are maybe smelling or viewing or listening to. And that is what we pay attention to. And the others which do not shine out or which does not shine out in what we are maybe smelling or hearing or watching, then that is what remain unattended, right? So information inputs initially are subjected to different tests for physical characteristics and content. So whatever you see around, so you look at the physical characteristics, right? Physical characteristics is the shape, the color, right? If you are looking at something, if you have a three-dimensional object, you might be looking at height and length and all sorts of things, right? So you're looking at that. And then following this preliminary analysis, after viewing it and analyzing the physical characteristics of what you are viewing or listening or hearing, then input may be selected. Then your senses, they select information that you should be paying attention to. So these are some unconscious processes. We are not aware of it, but that's what we do. And sometimes, I'm not sure whether it is the case with everyone. It's not that you or I are vulnerable to this particular problem. So we all have likes and dislikes. So, and this is the case when we see a picture, for example, abstract art. Some people like abstract art, right? They can identify shapes, they can attach meanings to different shape in abstract paintings or art. But many of us can't do. For us, they are just randomly drawn pictures or randomly thrown colors on the canvas, and we cannot identify any shape or picture or meaning. So that is attention. So some of us can pay attention to it, to what is there on the canvas, and some of us are unable to, right? So attentional learning, they are, as I said, they are synonymous, not anonymous, but synonymous. And this is the prerequisite of learning, right? So if you want to learn something, that's what school says, teacher says, parents says, pay attention to what you want to do, pay attention to what you need to learn. So it's a limited resource, which is attention span. Each one has a certain attention span. We don't have unlimited attention. That means physical. Even if you can spend reading 20, let's say one book a day, but at the end of the day you are going to be physically tired. So physical fatigue will lead to, and that physical fatigue will lead your body to what we call in a state where you want to sleep, right? Or you want to lie down and rest. You want to close your eyes. So that is, so it's a limited resource. So information processing requires less conscious attention. So it's an unconscious attention. Selecting something to pay attention is an unconscious processes. And then student age, hyperactivity, intelligence, and learning disabilities are associated with differences in the ability to control attention. So some students are, they are able, for example, they say, let's look at intelligence. People who are intelligent, we believe that they pay attention to what they do, what they are learning in class. And because they can pay attention to to something for a longer period of time, so that's why they are intelligent, right? And this is just the opposite of hyperactivity. So this is a hyperactivity is where student is unable to pay attention to something for a longer period of time. So student loses attention, right? So student is distracted. So the intelligent student is not distracted by something which is happening around him or her, but hyperactive student is distracted. And once a student is distracted, there are a lot of disruptions, there are a lot of bottlenecks, right? So there are a lot of filtration happens when you are distracted, right? You start looking here and there in classroom. You're not looking on the board. You're not looking at the teacher, but you are looking here and there. You might be scribbling on your notebook. You might be maybe tapping your feet, or maybe playing with your tapping your finger on your desk. So these are something a sign that your attention span has has reached a saturation point, right? And since you cannot pay attention, though you might be quiet, but your brain is not processing information, right? And learning disabilities, and this is, I'm sure you must be familiar with some learning disabilities. Um, we have watched and heard quite a lot. I'm not going to, for example, ADHD, and so because of, and the people who are either hyperactive or they have learning disabilities, it is their ability to pay attention to something for a longer period of time is less than those who, or less than those who fall in a group called intelligent people or intelligent students, because intelligent students or people, they can pay attention to something for a longer period of time, right? And student age is also very important here, and that's why if you remember in earlier classes, for example, pre-primary classes, which is kindergarten or nursery, and early class 1 2, there are a lot of activities in the class, so they will be a lot of physical activities, right? Since they can't write all the time, they can't listen to teacher all the time, so they have to be given lots of other things. So there is drawing period, there is dance period, there is music period, there is library period. So there is a lot of physical activity also, because they have a limited resource of attention, right? Their attention span is very short. So that's why there are a lot of activities in class. So teacher might be asking them to draw. Okay, let's sing something. Now let's sing numbers. Let's paint, color numbers. Let's draw numbers. So all these are different activities, but they might be doing the same thing, which is numbers, maths. Okay, so these are what we call student age, and its connection with, and you grow older as you read from sensory motor stage to formal operation stage, it is presumed that your attention span increases, right? Unless and until there is someone might be having certain, or maybe suffering from some certain learning disability, or maybe having certain hyperactivity condition. Okay. So I'm going to stop this here. Then in the next lesson, we will be, okay, now let's continue, because it says some of the activities or the devices that teachers could use to maintain students' attention in class. For example, the device is, one is missing here, movement, right? So movement is, that's why teachers keep moving in classroom, because they need to see that everyone is working on a task which is assigned to them. So movement is one of the strategies or device used by teachers in classroom to ensure that students are paying attention to what they should be paying attention to, the work which is given to them, right? So if teacher is speaking and teaching, and if teacher is moving as he or she is speaking and teaching, then she will ensure that she looks here and there and see that no one is scribbling on a notebook, and everyone has opened the book on a certain page, right? So that is movement. Then variety. So teacher use different a variety of teaching aids. So it's not just teacher is speaking, speaking, speaking. So there might be something written on the board. There might be something where students are asked to read from the book. There might be something where teachers, students are shown a certain video. So there are different strategies of teaching aids that teachers use in classroom. And also teachers should not be teaching in a monotone or teaching or reading in a monotone. So there has to be expressions when someone is, for example, English or even any subject. When you are reading something, you have to make sure that there is certain reading structure in yours. So if there is a question, you are reading it as a question. If it is asked as information, so you are reading it with interest. Right? As someone reads interest, you bring in that tone and pitch in your voice. So that is variety. And then the next is, so there is high voice, low voice, and all that. Interest. So teacher introduced lessons with stimulating material. So you must have seen sometimes teacher asks questions, sometimes teacher brings in a chart or maybe a globe or a model in the classroom and asks, okay, what do you think this can do? What is it? For example, volcano. Teacher brings in a model. So okay, let's see if we can identify it's a rock. Okay, the rock looks like a volcanic rock because it's formed in what we call cone shape. Okay, but how does it work? What happens within this? Then teacher might explain, okay, let's see if they can undo the model, open it and see different parts of it, then that's fine. Otherwise, teacher might draw a picture on the board, or they might be picture on their notebooks or their textbooks and make them understand by asking them to pay attention to as teacher is explaining, right? So the purpose is to make students to pay attention to, and also because the picture and the model is going to create an appeal to students' attention. And then questions, that's what I said, teachers should ask questions even in between. That's what teachers do, excuse me. So teachers do, they ask questions when they're teaching, so that to ensure, and if they feel that something is looking here and there and not paying attention, they usually ask questions from those students, right? The purpose is to make sure that by asking one student question, everyone else in the class is also going to be paying attention to the teacher, because teacher can ask questions from me, right? Attention and readings. So this is an important aspect here. So when we read, the purpose of reading is to comprehend, right? The text. Now, if we are paying attention to something we are reading, and let me give you an example here. You read a text, you are given one page text, and you are asked to read. You read it, and then the paper is taken away from you. And now you are asked question from that text. So you may be able to answer all the questions. You may be able to answer some of the question. Okay, then they might, okay, now you can read it again. So you might read that text again. Then again, in the second exercise, you might be able to answer more questions than you were able to answer in the first exercise, right? So that is how the more, so they are saying that we are able to retain or pay attention to information when we are given when we are reading something, when students are given some reading task. We are, as we say, when we are paying attention to something, that means there could be some bottleneck, there could be some difficulty in the text that might make students, that might filter their information that they should be they should be attentive to, right? And as they read more and more, they are able to process all the information. So common research finding is that students are more likely to recall important information than less important information ones. So that is, again, a question of attention. So what is important information in the text? So that is what students unconsciously decide. So that is important information. I must remember this. This date is important. This year is important. This name is important. So we usually, when we are reading, we usually look at maybe the date, the people, the names, the date, the years, right? And we decide, okay, this is important information. That's what, when they're able to recall important information from unimportant information. Then good and poor readers locate important material, tend to read for longer periods. What distinguishes these readers is subsequent processing and comprehension, right? So it is possible that both of them can actually locate important information, but the difference is this: whether they can process and recall it, right? And they can only recall it if they have made it part of their comprehension, right? If they have comprehended and connected information. Comprehension means it has become part of their long-term memory. So poor readers, being they are occupied with basic reading tasks, such as, so they are trying to decode. They might be trying to understand the vocabulary, right? So become distracted from important material and do not process adequately for retention and retrieval. So retention and retrieval is what we call comprehension, processing and comprehension. So there might be some bottlenecks, such as maybe new words in the text. The sentence is complex. It's not simple. One verb tense. There might be two verbs. There might be two ideas. They might have used which, when, all those things, and there are complex sentences. So that might be bottlenecks. There might be problems for a poor reader to comprehend information, or to take away the attention from the text. Then good readers, as they are attending to important information in the material, they may be more apt to relate the information to what they know. So as they're reading, they are able to connect what they're reading with the earlier information that they have read sometime, maybe long time ago, maybe recently. And as they're connecting this information with that, so they are creating meaningful connections, right? And they are also able to recall that information, repeat that information, and this creating connection actually improves comprehension. And that's why they're able to, the good readers are able to recall that information as compared to the poor readers. So attention is required during many phases of reading, such as processing orthographic features. Orthographic features are what we call the language structure, the vocabulary, the capitalization. For example, if you see a word with capital letter in a text, in a sentence, that means either it is so it should be a proper noun, right? So otherwise, the word in a sentence, the only place where a word begins with the capital alphabet is the beginning of a sentence. If it is there in between there, then it means it's a proper noun, right? So you're trying to orthographic feature. Then you're looking at the prepositions, so the phrases. Those prepositions is also transforms a word into a phrase. Look into, right? Pay attention to, right? Contribute to. So all these there. So extracting meanings. So they extract meanings from these orthographic features. And then they judge information for importance. So, okay, this is important information for them. And as they have judged, decided, their attention have decided, okay, the attention is filtered important information from unimportant information. And then they chose to focus on important information. Okay, so we are going to stop here. Then I will start the next video, which will be continuation of this same information processing theory.